Another meeting?
Yes. Never end.
Oh, I know that.
Just for something fun.
What?
I wish it was for something fun.
Don't tell me my username isn't correct.
You found your glasses though. Sorry, we'll wait till the show. Peter, you can start. I'm just gonna copy this.
I think I got it.
Hold on one sec.
This is a big homework assignment.
Yeah, I didn't get all the way.
Come on, I only asked for one pro and con. Yeah?
I only have tons.
You made it.
I got through most of Judith's list.
Homework.
Judith put everything in a list of how to get the most bang for your buck, I think, in
Yeah,
time and energy, which was very well done. As I got to the end of
well,
it, it
it
was
got
like,
to be just too much stuff, you
the end
know?
of it got hard.
Yeah, well, many years ago, many years ago, there was I read some stuff that was written during the Enlightenment. It was a list of different kinds of books that had medical uses, some of which were soporific. You read them and then there's what I call Vigo.
What does that mean? Who needs a sleeping pill?
Yeah, well, zoning law is definitely Vigo.
It's just legal language that gives me.
Well,
It sounds like,
Two-pager and the 14
no, that's why
pager.
those are great, because the legal language, I feel like the sentence contradicts itself, so I'm reading it, I'm like, what?
Well, it is very complicated stuff.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
We're 10-hour days now, 4 days a week. Starting on the site. It was cold this morning.
PC check the site. What does that mean?
Right, how are you?
Oh, doc.
You can start. Sorry. Okay. We
Alive
do.
there?
We do. We're perfect. We're ready whenever you are. Welcome, everybody.
Hey.
Just disregard my scribbles
All
for a minute.
right. It is 6 o'clock, according to the town clock. So I'd like to call to order the regular hybrid meeting of the Woodstock Planning Board for June 15th, 2023. Are there any updates to the agenda?
There are not.
We have the minutes from June 1st.
Move
Make a
move
motion
acceptance.
to approve the minutes.
Ayes?
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, communications and announcements. We have no adverse impact effect finding benefit from the SHPO or FAM acres received June 6th. We have the ZBA review of the HOTF zoning revisions received June 9th. And we have the talk of towns and topics, May-June issue received June 14th.
I have those.
So today, under new business, scheduled business, we have 5 sketch plan reviews. 4 are non-owner occupied short-term rentals and 1 wetland and water course permit. So I'd like to give a quick short history of the short-term rentals and how we got here. Long ago in Woodstock, when the Maverick concerts and the Woodstock Playhouse were in full swing, people came from far and near to these venues. Since there were no hotels in town, the town decided to let homeowners that had an extra bedroom or two to let them out for the weekend for the concert and theater goers. Then bed and breakfast stays were permitted to allow resident homeowners to help pay the high cost of land taxes. These became popular, and homeowners would provide breakfast for their guests before they would head out for mountain hikes. This is how owner-occupied short-term rentals came to be and are still permitted. Then along came Airbnbs. That became a commercial operation with a business platform so people could make money from their real estate. That morphed from an air mattress on the floor to short-term rentals of entire homes, which quickly spread to non-owner occupied short-term rentals of entire estates and homes to become party pads. They created such a nuisance and disturbance to the neighborhoods that the town was forced to take action. That action was the creation of the new flawed law governing short-term rentals, intended to rein in and put controls and conditions on such uncontrolled party paths. With such conditions as 3 complaints or violations and the permit would be revoked. Other conditions included having a property manager living nearby and that there be only one such short-term rental permitted per person or entity. One condition should be that all non-owner occupied short-term rentals should be for the current owner only and not run with the land. Most importantly, there should be a limit of the number of non-owner occupied short-term rentals permitted. However, we reached that limit long ago. Not just the limit of units, but also the limit of the town's citizens to put up with the chaos they create. But this new law clearly states there are no limits, because annually the town board can set any cap they want. And here we are, with more and more applications before us. This is clearly not what the citizens of Woodstock want, and is in conflict with the comprehensive plan, which the planning board must adhere to. The comprehensive plan calls for the town to facilitate more long-term rentals. During the review and approval process for a special use permit, the planning board can put whatever conditions it believes relevant to protect the resident citizens, the peaceful enjoyment of their homes and neighborhoods. So at this point, I would like to turn over to the chair to the vice chair, Judith Kerman, who is on several, to present the 4 non-owner occupied short-term rental SUPs on tonight's agenda to the board. For the reasons I have just said, I, for one, will vote no to approve any more non-owner occupied short-term rentals. And I regret the passing of those at the last meeting, but since they were without a public hearing, are probably not valid anyway. So Judy, if you would please take care of these cases.
Okay. Let me, if I might make my own statement on this. I'm not sure what the limits of our authority are, but it is very clear that we have the authority to set restrictions and to look at things like the site and the closeness to neighbors and other things that might affect the nuisance potential. I'm not sure we can simply say no out of hand under the current rules, much as I would like to. So I have just brought up on my computer, and I can share on the screen, the map that I did in January, that I confirmed with Butch in January. There have now been maybe half a dozen that we've approved, or that Butch has approved, that are not on my map yet. But if I share it, you will see If I can I? Yes, I can, okay.
Can I have a copy of your?
All right, so here we have the short-term rentals and also hotels and B&Bs. This is the whole town. If you look at the whole town, I guess I'm gonna make that go out of the way, yes. No, that's on yours, so we can't do that. You could move it over to the side so that it's not blocking the map itself. Or you could just make it small. Click on that little,
This one?
no, all the way on the left there. So you click on that, that's gonna make everything disappear. Okay, so you can see what I have coded is owner occupieds are light blue. Possibly owner occupied is a lighter blue. Non-owner occupieds are green or possibly yellowish. Category is not clear. There aren't many of those, and there are some hotels. If you look at the whole town, you can see that out in the boonies, there are not a lot, but in some places like on Wittenberg Road, there's a cluster. However, if you come in toward the center of town, for obvious reasons of convenience and location, they get more and more dense. And the blue ones, as I said, are owner occupied. So the green ones are the non-owner occupied. And if we come into the hamlet, which is that yellow and gray area, and you add in the hotels and the B&Bs, we have a serious condition of a lot of stuff, and particularly on a few streets, a great deal. This is an Air Street over here.
Mhm.
So that's the condition we are in. I would be in favor of looking at these new ones, locating them, which I can easily do, and seeing, are they out in the woods or are they close in and there are lots of other ones really near them, and taking that into account. That would be my recommendation. I don't know that we have the authority to simply say a flat no. And that's really a question. I don't know if it's a question for our attorney or for the town board. So we have in front of us Andrew Johnson and Megan Thomas. They are
You guys can come on.
they are asking to transfer the permit to an owner occupied, which was a non-owner occupied, which would be moving it in the direction that we.
Yeah, we want
Wanted
to
to
go.
go.
This is what you want.
Now, I need to say one more thing. The law currently says that transfer ownership, you are allowed to get a new permit.
I'll add to what you have. The law does say that they have 30 days, which is how it is within the law. And if they are abreast and during the process call either the building department or me, and we know about it, they have done all of this. They did it within the 30 days. Again, what Judy just said, they're going from a non-owner house to an owner occupied house. We have had about 5 or 6 transfers that we've done. And typically with the transfers, because it was already established, nothing's changing. It's just a new owner staying the same. This one is even better because
This
it's
one's better
non-owner
because
going to owner. But we have waived review, and we have had a handful of these cases because we will see these with the sales of houses. And people following the code and following the law and being acknowledgeable that the town of Woodstock has a short-term rental law. Thank you, Andrew and Megan.
So that is our situation, I guess. Other questions, either about where this is or for the owner?
So this is one of the number that is approved
Way prior.
way prior. It's
This-
not adding to the number.
This case was from 2021.
So it was already within the cap, right?
Yes.
It's just becoming an
Yes,
owner
this isn't one
occupied.
of those 15. This is totally separate.
Okay.
So do you have somebody, like, when you are renting out your house and going away, do you have somebody in the area who's the manager? Or are you in the area?
We would not be renting it out while we're away. It would only be while we're here. And
While you're, so it'd actually be while you're in that house itself.
in the near term, we don't have any plans to rent it out. It's just something for future consideration.
So like while you were in the house itself, somebody would rent a bedroom. Okay.
You have 3 rooms that you could rent that way, plus where you are actually occupied.
Right, it's a 4-bedroom house, yes.
This is, okay, then you can ask the question. You're renting existing bedrooms,
Yes,
Mhm.
so it's a shared kitchen bath facility.
that's correct. Although we do have our own bathroom there would be two.
I'm going to look for this house. This is 158227.
It is one of the ones, like you said, is out in the boonies.
Oh, it's probably already on the list.
It's on
Cooper Lake
It's
Road.
right-
It's already
You're right on
the
the,
Okay.
Oh, you went to Moonies in
you're
Woodstock.
on the, you're on the Lake Hillside.
You just bought this house? It was for sale recently.
That's correct, yeah. Just bought it. Yeah, we love it. We're very, very excited to be the new stewards of it.
Looking for 158220. I just want to see where it is. Obviously, the issues that I was raising.
Like
are-
Cooper Lake, it's like if you
1518.
go down
No.
Cooper Lake from Lake Hill, it's like on your right,
Mhm.
nearby. Just bike by it.
1518 221. Here we
Peter,
are.
do you have- Can I copy what you read? So I can just throw that in the minutes. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. It's not on my list as an existing one.
That doesn't look right. Just based on streets and things.
Yeah, you're in the, you're.
It's probably the wrong thing, but let me take a quick look. That is 1518. Ah, wrong one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep, it was 227 and I didn't read the right row, so let me go back. 15. There we go. Yeah.
That was.
So,
That's it.
Cooper Lake Road. And there are a fair number, but they're all owner occupied. It's a little cluster. But there's nobody right next door to you, which is one of the criteria I would be inclined to want to use. You know, if there were like these two across here, I would ask that question if they came before us.
Mhm.
But you've got multiple lots in between. So that was my question. So do we have any further questions on this one? So we need a motion to approve.
Typically, we wait for.
Or do we need to have a, do we
Yeah.
need to have a public hearing?
Not for this, it's just a transfer. I don't even make either sign of my sign. I just transfer the original one, put the new number on. It's all in place. They've been inspected.
And you
So-
can let me know when it's done and I will change my map,
Yes, so
because
I,
I'm gonna update it.
yeah, for this, I think you can make a motion to wait for the review for the
Do we
transfer.
have a motion to approve this permit? Well, that looks like,
That looks like an all eye.
An
Who
all aye.
seconded?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, this is, again, I just want to reiterate, this is a non-owner occupied entity. This is going to an owner occupied, which we begged for. Thank you. This is why I put them first on the agenda.
sweeten the
Guys,
pot.
it's paperwork at this point. I have to do some paperwork. The board will approve a final resolution at the next meeting, and you'll just deal with me. You don't have to come to any more meetings, and then you'll be back with the building department for your annual and then fees and all that jazz.
Sounds
But
good.
call me, we'll talk, and if you're good, you don't have to do this again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Woodstock.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes,
How did I miss that?
you even raised your hand, honey.
I really wanted to make the motion. That's okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much.
You want 136? I don't even have that.
I know this is difficult. I just thank you guys.
Is it 259 Silver Hollow?
Can I ask a question? So I'm just curious, so the permit gets transferred, it's with the property, it's not with the
At
owner?
this time, the
Oh,
law
That's
says
how the
that it
code-
gets
oh,
transferred.
that's how,
to the
that's how
property.
they passed the law.
Because you
But
create,
only
you create a
if they-
special use
I
of
thought
the
it was
property.
I thought it was the opposite.
No, and it's
No.
only if they did it within, there's clauses, they
I
have
got you.
that, so they can't come back like 3 years and say, oh, there was a valid SCP, it would be null and void. It's within the 30
I
days,
got you.
but technically, yes, it is written and says. Yes.
All right, so the next one is 259.
Dan, you're gonna be the next planning board member, I feel it.
Silver Hollow.
After all this,
You don't want me
Okay,
on the
there it
board.
is.
And-
15-1-136.
I'm pretty sure we have Holly online, so we might have to let her talk and bring her out.
Okay, I'm zooming.
I'm right here.
Thanks,
Silver
Holly.
Hollow Road. which at the moment is not any of the above. There it is.
Oh, it's out in Willow. This one is out in Willow too.
Yep, and I'm zooming out so we can see what's in the neighborhood. Well, there's another non-owner occupied that's a bit over. Doesn't look terribly dense, which is one of the criteria I'm interested in.
To maintain community character.
Yeah,
Density. We're looking at density.
to limit the amount of annoyance of neighbors. I mean, it's getting there. There's a, let's see if we go out any further. Yeah, well, you see the situation, and these are all non-owner occupied, but they're big properties. This is one of the smallest ones, and it is a 1-bedroom.
Actually, I'd like to correct that. It's a studio. It's not even a 1-bedroom. I don't know if you can see behind me, but I'm in it right now.
Okay,
So it literally holds 2 people max. So it's not in terms of, not that you guys asked me yet, but in terms of, disturbances, that I think is minimal because of just the nature of the place.
not a party.
No parties. Also, I just want to say this place also was owned by Kate Pearson, who owns Kate's Lazy Meadow, which is a motel, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. That's who owned this previously, and she rented it out through her company,
Business.
yes, for what that's worth.
Was it a long-term rental or a short?
No, it was short term. She rented it out. I don't think it was on Airbnb. I think she rented it as a short term rental through, offered with her other properties on a website. So it was short term, but more like a B&B, I guess.
So I guess the question that I would have for the rest of my colleagues on the board is, what kinds of criteria do we want to set that we clearly have within our authority to set? And in this case, do we see any issues? Other than the general issue. By the way, I'm of the opinion that this is getting overbuilt, like shopping malls were. And the amount of money people are going to make on it is going to decrease over time because there's just too much of it. Just my opinion.
The other thing I wanted to say is that this place is really only 3 season. It's not suitable for winter at all. I barely come up here in the winter because it's just not really winter proof. So for what that's worth for you guys, like, I understand the shortage of long-term rentals. This one does not fall into that category. I would have to do substantial renovation to it to make it that. And at that point, I'm just going to live here full time because I do plan on doing that, but not until I retire, which is about 7 years.
And you think you might update it at that point and live in it, or?
Yeah, that's what my plan is. Yes. Maybe even sooner than that. I mean, I'd like to retire sooner than that, but we'll see how that goes,
How many square feet is it, just out of curiosity?
It's 500 square feet.
So it's a little.
Yeah,
place.
it's tiny.
So can I go backwards to something Peter was talking about, which is how did we get here? Because I thought that in all of this drama we went through, there was this cap.
Okay, James, you weren't here last meeting.
Okay.
Let him finish the question.
But have there been openings? And I thought there was a long list of people waiting. And shouldn't those people be getting an opening?
I don't know about a list. I have no idea. It wouldn't fall on us, and I don't want any part of that. April 11th, the town board had a meeting, and there was a group of 20 people. I'm just guesstimating, that never handed in applications and had been renting as short-term renters.
And had county permits,
They
right?
had county permits. Quite a few of them I had heard never handed in the permits and knew, but they said they didn't know. They had no knowledge that there was a short-term rental. They proceeded to go to the town board repeatedly, met with the town board, got some lawyers involved. I'll say it again, on April 11th, the town board voted. I guess it's a whole whereas is, and they go through the whole law and they named 15 people. 30 of them are all non-owner occupied, and they approved them to go through. So now we are seeing non-owner occupied, these lump of 15. We had 2 or 3 cases last week, pretty much waived, but we're also talking about affordable housing. So Peter's point is very valid and concerns are very valid, and it's put awful spot as Woodstock residents. So I can give you this if you want to look at, read it over. These are all the ones that I have,
So
I've
there's, so
received.
there's just 20 and that's it,
15.
15. And
No.
then it's over.
There's one other point, isn't there, that the original cap was higher and then they cut it back.
Yes.
So
Yes, the
this
cap was
might
higher,
fill in
and
some of
then
them.
miscommunication. They were using the higher cap number and the building department never knew there was a lower cap. Now, granted, houses are selling. We are gonna see non-owner occupied short-term rentals from time to time because houses are selling and they're gonna fill those slots. So whatever number is within the building department. So it's not like we're never gonna see them again, but it should be nothing like what we saw the past few years where it was,
Right.
um,
Now, I,
ask me questions, that's it. The only reason I knew about this is because I look at the local laws that we're supposed to know, and I look at the agendas and try to, I wouldn't have known
I want to add.
the history.
I want to add 2 little points. One is that some of those people are people who have owned a home in Woodstock for a very long time and arguably plan to retire here and couldn't keep the house if they couldn't rent it because they have a primary residence in New York somewhere.
They all definitely have stories.
So that, you know, those people arguably are folks. Point number 2 is people seem to think that LLCs are always, you know, like hedge funds or something. And that's not the case. People can get an LLC because it provides a very limited amount of liability protection. I have one for my press. So we can't know
Or a
whether
trust.
somebody is an LLC who actually
Right.
lives here or who is, you know, a bad actor.
I would say trust is a little different than DBA.
And they're a trust. I mean, my house is in a
But-
trust. So
but
there are
I-
lots of
right.
legal constructs that are not necessarily predators.
So in the case of Ms. Watson, she purchased a property that the previous owner had a county permit for.
Yes,
And it was rented through her motel business.
But the
although-
previous, I don't want to name it, the previous owner then did not know about the law and just was using their permit as the way to,
I don't know the history.
but then she bought the house with the knowledge that she would be able to get this permit within 30 days of
And it fell
purchase.
under this lump of people. I don't know if the 30 days really applies to her.
When did you buy the house?
I bought it in 2019, in April of 2019.
So before.
I think she more, yeah, I
When did
wouldn't.
the SDR go?
And so you just were under the understanding that your
2019.
permit was enough for covering doing a rental?
Yes, I didn't know until, I mean, I was contacted by Butch to let me know that I needed to get that paperwork in, and I was remiss and did not. As soon as he, I'm sorry,
Thank you for being honest.
I'm gonna be honest, what do I have to lose?
Oh, I appreciate it because
I mean, I didn't, I got busy and I was, at that point, the pandemic, I had just gone back to work. The pandemic had, things were changing again. It was winter and I didn't get the paperwork in and I was remiss, I'm
When
not-
did Butch contact you about all this?
I think fall of 2020. Possibly during 2021. I did, and again, I didn't rent it at all during the winter. The first year I rented anything, I bought it in 2019. I started renting it in July of 2020. I rented it through November, then took it off, then started it again in April. And then took it off again in November, like just seasonal. And I come up, I block off at least 2 weekends a month for myself because it's still, I didn't buy it as an investment property in that way. But I can't be here every single weekend. So I thought that it was, not a bad idea. I do, and I live in Brooklyn. That's where my full-time residence is.
So if we add her to this,
She's on there. She's the first
no, if
one.
we add her to this total of approved short-term rentals,
Yeah,
that means when one becomes available again, that one doesn't get filled.
I suppose that's true.
Can we say that's true?
I don't know. Depends on where the cap is, probably.
Well, I would say that. Just because there should be we shouldn't have a cap that we're telling
Can you say that
people.
again?
Yeah.
There's, okay, I'm gonna use wrong numbers. There's 200 total we can give. Right now, we're at 200. We're gonna give this and it's gonna be 201. When so-and-so sells their house and the new people don't reapply their thing, and there's an opening, that opening isn't true.
Okay.
You're basically talking about, there's supposed to be a listing place. So how does these 15 play
Right.
into?
Yeah.
So that way, we manage to,
That's actually a pretty good.
my
idea.
issue is the amount of people who ask me on the street,
Yeah.
can I get an SRO? And I say no. And so this is
That's
ugly.
correct.
Me too.
Well, I don't want to go,
Every
I don't want to go home and look at my email after this.
No,
and be like,
you're right.
what the hell am I not getting an SRO? So
Yeah.
it's-
SR,
there's got to be
SDR.
special
SDR.
reason, SDR, got to be special reason why we're letting it. If we're going
Okay,
to let
so
it,
we're
and then
kind
we
of
can't.
allowing for a little expansion, but as things turn over, it's gonna go back down to where
Yeah,
the
you
cap
can't,
is.
it's got to, so we just have a +1 in parentheses that
Well, the authority to do that, I think it's a good idea.
I say we do. I mean, we do when they come back with another one and then we say, too bad.
So tell me what to do and who to talk to. Do I take it right to the town board and say, we passed the first two, and we understand that there's a real need, and this is our
The first one
question?
doesn't count because it's taking over another one.
Those three that we did last
200.
don't count. So we're a little bit over, or do they count?
They're technically done. We approve the resolution.
Okay. So as of the ones we have today, let's try it. And if it bounces, then we know
And
something.
I mean, I think I should direct the town board, like, there's
Yeah, you have
concerns,
to-
the town board did this, these cases are
And
here.
Butch needs to
There
go
are
into.
concerns. Okay,
Yeah,
I
we
will
can't just keep
draft-
telling people you can't get a short-term rental and then have,
All right,
you know.
so this is how your administrator is gonna handle this. I will draft a memo for you guys to approve at the next meeting to give to the town board and Supervisor McKenna. Based on all of these, I'm not scheduling any more of these until you guys figure out how you wanna handle this. Based on.
So how many are left on the list that the town board approved of that we haven't seen yet?
12, 13. What, 3 on tonight, and then I think I have another one sitting in my office.
So we're essentially saying until 14 or 15 or whatever turnover,
We can never have
we
another
will
one.
never have another one.
And we have to say that because, real estate agents, everybody is
Okay,
like,
Judy. You and I can put our heads together and draft the right words,
Okay,
change maybe
Okay.
to. But I want the
Yeah,
right
it's just-
words on like what we're
it's
doing.
just gotta be fair as fair.
so what we are saying is because this is a small unit
Mhm.
and unlikely to create a neighborhood
All
problem.
right, you're going back to just Holly right now.
Yes.
And because the town board has referred it to us on the basis of this sort of hardship situation.
Right.
We will approve it.
Okay.
But if a new opening comes up, this one has filled it already.
Yes.
And for further ones, we will do the same, we'll say the same thing in the resolution that we make. If a new one opens up, assuming that all the, that the lack of nuisance risk and the rest of that is.
All right,
there.
Vice Chair, I can word a resolution like that easily. We're not gonna go to the town board, or probably not to even get an answer and just do it this way.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I think the law's the law. There's a
We
certain
never got a
amount. If
response
we-
to our scenic overlay ability thing. That was months ago. I've asked.
I mean, if they
10
want to,
times.
if they want to increase the amount of rentals, they need to officially do that. And everybody's got to know about it, and everybody's got to vote on it, and everybody's got to be.
So
mad
I
as
say
hell
the
about
next
it.
resolutions I write.
The
Can we
ones
just-
the ones that they have agreed to, we will approve if the other criteria that we choose to set are met.
Okay.
About nuisance and density and things like that,
And the property itself and whatever. And, yeah.
and the property selling and the rest of
And the
that.
manager, oh, when you're not here, who's managing the property?
I have a woman, Ana Gonzalez, and she lives in Kingston and she manages it for me.
So she can get a call at 2 in the morning and take care of some nightmare. if you're not-
I would get the call and then call her.
Okay. Because that's clearly a requirement.
It is.
So what we're gonna say then for each of these is, we're approving this list that we have already got from the town board as they come through, if they meet reasonable criteria.
Mhm.
But any openings that come up to that number, these are filling them.
Yeah.
So there can be no increase in the official cap
Right.
until other things have turned over. I mean, there wouldn't be an increase in the official cap. If other things turn over, other things could come off a waiting list, but these are at the head of the line and they are taking up those spaces as they open up.
I got
Okay.
I have a
it.
question.
I can handle
How do we know that the cap will not be increased?
We don't.
Okay.
it. We don't determine that.
That's
They
entirely
can,
up
they
to
can
the
do
town
that.
board.
And so that's what I mean. If they came to us saying, oh, we have this huge vote and everything, we've added 20 more. And we have the big fighting and yelling and screaming and that's all done, then we would just be approving 20 more and
Yeah.
that's the law.
John,
Well, but these would fill in that first.
Right, they would do it first, right, exactly.
And we're not in a position to.
we are taking a little
say,
power
no,
back
we
by
don't want
wording
any
it
more.
that way.
Excuse me?
We're taking power
I'm
back.
sorry,
by
but-
wording it
Yeah, we
that
don't-
way.
We've got
We don't
two
dictate the law.
conversations going
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
here.
Town board, that we just,
Are
you
you
know,
okay
make
with
sure
this?
they're abiding. by the law.
Yeah, my thoughts are right in line with Peter's.
I know.
You do know, yeah. I think this thing the town board has allowed this to become out of control. And should have never been, we shouldn't be in this position, basically.
Yeah.
We should not be,
So we're taking back a little bit of power
Fine.
unless they
Which
tell
is-
us that we
yes.
can't.
which is fine.
I will work on this resolution this coming week, so we have it,
Okay.
and then I will. we'll
Is there
keep-
anybody who thinks this is a bad idea or we're going at it the
No,
wrong way?
it's a good idea.
No, I don't think it's a bad idea at all.
Okay.
The whole idea of STIs was a bad idea.
Well,
So
yeah,
I'll work on a draft resolution, we'll continue getting them, we'll get through these 15, and we're just gonna amp it up.
so we need to look at the other two.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Individual-
are we voting on Holly right now, or is she
I
on
think
hold?
Judy kind of did.
No, I didn't. We need to, all those in favor, in the case of SUP 230679, of doing it as we are talking about, please indicate.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Sure.
Peter says no, everybody else says yes. Is that correct, Peter? Are you
No.
voting no? Okay,
So, John? We're talking about Holly Watson right now, this studio,
but we're setting a
And it's-
precedent.
we are setting, but right now, we're just voting on this.
We're
page.
saying it's a small enough unit that
It's
it's not likely to
seasonal,
create
so-
a neighborhood problem, and it is reasonably spaced from the other places. And she's not renting it every weekend. And it will take up the first opening
Yes.
that comes up in the list. I think that's everything. right?
Yep, and I have it all written down. So Braden seconded, so I just need a yes or no. So Jen,
Yes.
Braden, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
James, yes. John,
Yes.
Peter,
No,
okay,
I'd
I'm a
like-
yes.
Judy's not there.
You know, I'd just like to make a general comment.
Of course.
Short-term rentals have been a problem in this town for 100 years. My wife's family used to move out of town in the summer because the rents would go so high. We're talking about, my wife's family came here in 1920 something. Anyway, but that's really how how long this is going on. The rents went through the roof in the summer. And they moved out. They moved out because my wife's grandmother lived in Mount Marion, so they'd all go to her house for the summer. That kind of thing. So, I mean, that's the reality of what has occurred here.
And that was on a property that was a long-term rental except in the summer?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it
that's
was a
whole other thing.
regular
Yeah.
occurrence, but things haven't changed is the problem.
Well, except that a lot of these houses are not even on the market as long-term rentals anymore.
Yeah.
They're just short-term rentals. And people are making enough money on them in the high season, I guess, that they leave them empty the rest of
The
the
part
time.
of this that I have consistently objected to is non-owner occupied short-term rentals. Because that's doing nothing but creating a real estate market
Yeah.
that we shouldn't be encouraging.
Let me ask you a question. I was looking at the new Hurley law. The new Hurley law prohibits non-owner occupied, which means you have to be in residence to have an STR. I thought about recommending that, but it's a kind of social engineering because there are so many summer people, weekend people, people who have a house here and they live in Manhattan or Brooklyn and they've got an apartment and they plan to retire here. It's kind of hard not to have some sympathy for those people. The issue of corporate ownership, and I don't mean LLCs for property protection, but corporate ownership. That's not just this. That's been going on since at least the crash in 2008, where the hedge funds have been buying up property. So this is part of that whole pattern. I think hedge funds ought to be illegal, but then,
There's also a lot of people who own properties in this town that do not rent, I mean, they're outside. 5 properties touch my property. Not one of them is a full-time resident, not one. We're the only ones. In the winter, it's very peaceful up where I live because there's nobody around.
Yep.
They're all gone.
Yeah.
So
but they're not renting them out. They just only use them in the summer
Correct,
because they can afford to.
correct. 2 live in Manhattan, 2 live in Brooklyn, 1 lives on the island. But, so that's what occurs, but they do not rent them out. So the number of part-time owners who could rent is
Yes,
probably double what we're dealing with.
agreed. But one could argue that the people who do rent don't have the resources not to. So that's only the
You're
very
making
wealthy
an
who can afford to
economic
do it that way.
decision. Do that.
No, I mean, we can't.
I own a second house.
Yeah.
Down in this town, up in the Adirondacks. I never rent it. Never. If I can't afford to deal with it, I'll get rid of it. But as long as I can afford to deal with it, I will.
Well, obviously, a lot of people never thought about this until Airbnb made it a lot easier. And that's one of those things that computer technology has changed the world in a lot of ways. This is one of them.
All right, so I want to look at the next 2 and see what you think, and if we can carry those 2 with the same press.
Okay, so let me find the other 2 on the
This
map,
one's on
because I
Glasgow
think the map is a
Turnpike.
useful way of approaching this.
And she's not here, so.
Okay. Where are you? So we are looking at
2655
26.2.
Glasgow Turn.
26.
Point
All right.
2,
Huh?
26.2.
Yeah, give me a second, because I gotta do this descending. I have never learned to use the search function. This is actually faster. 26.
That's it.
Point 2,
Point
dash
2,
9,
9.
dash
That's
17.112.
Yeah, it's
Got
down
it.
a long driveway.
I guess so. Whoa.
It has an original log cabin on it. Pretty cool.
Excuse me?
And this woman I spoke to,
This is-
it says Luna
the
Trust,
log
but it's
cabin is
just,
quite
that's, she's put all of her,
Yeah.
everything into a
Yeah.
trust as you did, Judy.
Really
It's
better-
not, there's no,
really better addition.
LLC or anything. We actually went back and forth because you know that I vet
How
that
about
very
Any of the
well.
owners?
What is the access to
What?
this?
I knew the
lot?
owner, and actually a client of mine rented it.
Really?
I don't see that there's an access road. to
I think
this.
James has it on his computer to show you, but what
Let me make sure I got the right
I
thing
see
here.
here.
It's pretty fancy.
Ashley
Um,
Smith.
So what is
No,
her,
it's-
do we know their background? Why are they on this list? Are they on this list because they had a county permit, which they didn't renew and
They had a county permit, yep,
This is Luna Trust. this one.
yep, this is
Luna
Luna Trust.
Trust? And when did they
They
find out?
must have,
they
they must
were-
have an easement through this
I don't know,
property.
and they're not.
Well, they should be here, so we shouldn't do it.
Whatever you want to do.
Because we can't ask them questions. We don't know who's managing the property.
Fine with me.
The furthest.
I mean, I do know Robin Collins manages the property.
Yes, and I know Robin Collins, actually,
Yes,
but she's not here.
yeah, they must have lost track of the date, whatever. I've spoke to her a few
Oh,
times.
they
She's
gotta-
in town.
They have to come back.
Okay,
They have to come back.
All right,
I
fine.
think that's a fair decision.
go on to Jesse Cole, he's on the computer.
Okay, so let me find Jesse.
Let me just make sure they're not online.
Let's see what fancy house is.
He was
No,
37.
there was around 10, 11.
I apologize in advance for my 2-year-old in the background.
37, 226, 200.
Okay, so that's it.
Okay, I got him right here.
Yeah, just. All right, we're in agreement, we'll reschedule Luna Trust, because yes, ask me.
So this is near Yeri Hill Road, and how is it accessed?
Non-tunnel lane.
Tunnel lane, so there must be a driveway easement or something.
Yeah, so there's 3 lots that are part of my property. That one, I guess, to the left.
Oh,
that-
you own all 3 of them?
the one in pink, the one behind that has a little panhandle, and then the one on the left and the long narrow one.
Oh, this one,
Yeah, so that one has the driveway going through.
okay.
And
Well-
he has a caretaker too. Brandon Schmiedel's been in my office a few times for this application. And he does own the contiguous properties.
Well, he's fairly well distributed from anything else. I mean, allowing, apart from the question of echoes off of hills.
Do you
This
live on
is-
one of the properties?
No, I live in Brooklyn full-time. So bought the property in 2014. And always with the plan to spend some time there and rent it. I think it's before even there was any Ulster County permitting. I think it was the Wild West at that time. Got the Ulster County permit as soon as that process came into play. And then when the original Woodstock permitting process began, I went through the entire application process, did everything properly as I understood it, and then kind of hit a roadblock due to a pre-existing hot tub that was on the property that had never been permitted by the previous owner, and basically never got any guidance from Butch or the building department on how to kind of deal with that. Then COVID happened. I had some personal issues and just never got resolved. And then all this stuff happened with all the back and forth, and was able to get reapply essentially over the last month.
Comments, questions?
Is the hot tub still on the property, Jesse?
Yes, and I've finally got
Just curious, because that
Yes.
was a problem.
hot tub is still there. It is fully permitted.
Okay,
I mean, we can say it's isolated enough, but other than that,
Where does the caretaker live?
He lives in Saugerties, and he's been working. He maintains that private road, Montoma Lane. Works with a lot of the other residents on that road, and manages a bunch of different properties in the area.
The other 2 properties aren't rentals?
Yeah, what are the
They're
other 2
full-time
properties?
people?
Yeah, he helps out a bunch of full-time people and part-time people.
Jesse, the board asked, what about your other properties? Are they full-time, long-term rentals? What's going on with your other properties?
I mean, the 3 lots.
yeah,
Oh, so there's only one building. There's just one
So the other
house.
2 lots are just empty lots.
There's empty lots. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 26 acres total between the 3 lots.
Oh.
The previous owners, as I understand, were there maybe for 10, 15 years. They would use the house in the summer and then just close it down. So it's never, at least for several decades, and I think it was never a full-time residence.
can you turn the sound up a little bit?
Nope. This is as
That's sold
full as
in
it goes every
Okay.
time, John. Yes,
Well,
look.
everybody heard him?
Mhm.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Well, it's certainly enough property to,
26 acres.
for a house that big. Any questions, comments, questions for the applicant?
So his permit was not properly put through with getting the short-term
not.
rental
Mhm.
thing, and then it just kind of got dropped in the between Butch and him.
Well, do we have a motion? We want to do,
I guess it's the same deal as the other one, but
yeah,
you know.
kind of hard to not do it. It's not a heavily impacted area. It's a
I don't think it's
large
impacted at all.
area.
It's so much property on the side of it. But
What?
there's not any impact at all. It's so much property on each side.
Especially with one house on one lot and two.
Yeah, one house on one lot and that's it. Well, I hope your caretaker is diligent, because 5 bedrooms is a party house.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do try to price it to avoid, people that, are partying, and I carefully vet people. He's very diligent. He'll respond anytime. Never had a problem with any of my neighbors. We all contribute to the road. It's a private road. And yeah, never had a complaint as far as I know. It's been, I guess, nine years.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So,
Same criteria as before.
Yeah.
Okay.
so Judy, you made the motion,
Do I have a second?
James. All right, we're just gonna go through Judy,
All those in favor? Aye.
Jen. Aye. Braden, James,
Aye.
John,
No,
Peter.
No,
Okay, the motion carries.
I mean, that's
Dan, come on up.
the only way to do this that I can see. That's the only way to do this that I can see.
I want to hear the rest of them.
You picked the wrong night.
Oh, no, that's
Thank you very
much
much,
more
everybody.
interesting than what I got
I don't
going
know
on.
business.
Oh, maybe
Thank
not.
you, Jesse.
No,
Thank you.
maybe not, yeah.
There's paperwork and
business
stuff. You
has
can call my
some
office. We'll talk. We'll,
Yeah.
let you know what's
And these
going on.
houses are owned by.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
We'll
you
do
very
as
much.
possible.
Look at this bachelorette party happening here.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Holly.
It's tough decisions to make.
okay,
This is not
everyone.
bad.
I still don't, I hear you.
There's no
That's
hotel.
it.
I am
How many
returning
people are on
the
the
chair
board
to
now?
the chair.
Down one.
Hey,
It's
Tony?
like staying in,
How many-
like, Salt Lake,
gotta be every Thursday
for,
night?
Dinner, they're not shopping.
I got a baby on, another baby on the way. I don't know about that. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's.
So
Maybe-
that's
give me
why
like,
Florida now
give me
is
5
so hot.
years.
It's like there's a lot of restaurants. Music,
We'll
that's
talk
such a
later.
weird
We'll
thing.
see, yeah.
It's gotta be balanced.
We'll see.
Okay, so Peter is chair again.
Okay, next case.
There's certain mountains that-
This is Daniel Jacobs and Chris.
Hello.
Excuse me. Nadia, Wetlands Watercourse Permit number 23-051. And this is the second sketch plan review and the discussion of the site visit and findings of wetlands and watercourse permit application to construct a deck within the wetlands and watercourse buffer in the R 1.5 zoning district located at 3294-212 in Woodstock. So the planning board did a site visit. Jennifer and Brandon were there along with Melissa. This is before us because the entire house and area is within the 100-foot buffer. On our site visit, I saw that the proposed deck is in a very high elevated bank above the creek, well out of the flood zone. And from the construction proposal I saw, should propose no danger or destabilization of the bank. So do you agree, Graydon and Jennifer? You don't think that that's going to destroy the bank, or nothing, no trees are coming down or anything that would be destabilization? Not agree.
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so the interesting part here is the code itself. It's before us because it is within the 100-foot buffer. And the building inspector can't issue a building permit because it has to be under 3, not toward the stream. And because I don't see a problem with this particular deck, I would like to point out a couple of issues in the code. And the first issue is, it says construction of an addition to an existing single-family residence or existing deck structure. Construction of an addition. I don't consider this an addition. To me, an addition is addition to a house with a foundation and insulation and wiring and plumbing, bedroom. This to me is like an elevated patio. So reading that wording, I don't see it as an addition. I don't know if that's how the code meant it to be or not to be.
I think it's probably because decks are considered structures, whereas hardscapes are not considered an actual structure.
That's the
I would
question.
assume.
That's really the question.
Mhm.
I mean, when it's not clear like this, there is the other idea of mitigation, and I suppose if it's on posts, that's a kind of mitigation. It's not going on the ground, correct?
But the elevation could be mitigation.
It's out of
It's
the
not,
floodplain.
it's totally out
It's
of,
completely out of the flood.
it's the one area of this parcel that's not in the flood.
You mean the whole area where it's being built?
It's the highest elevation on the whole lot, and then higher than any neighborhood.
It just doesn't
The
show
water
up.
would go elsewhere.
It just doesn't show up on my.
Well,
map
yeah,
unless
probably
I-
what the previous, whenever they built the house, they probably put fill there or something like that, I would assume, in order to build the bank up, so they could build what they originally did,
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
years ago. Whatever.
So the other issue about the code is a watercourse buffer area described, a specific area surrounding a watercourse that is intended to provide some degree of protection to the watercourse from human activity. Well, I say this provides some protection of the watercourse. It's certainly not in any way,
You mean as opposed to having a patio on the ground, which is.
or
what
opposed to
that-
cutting trees and bushes down. This is already cleared, so the bank has vegetation along it. They're not cutting anything to stabilize it, so that is some degree of protection.
Well, you are, after all, a certified wetlands inspector, so your opinion has some weight on this kind of issue.
Mhm.
So you feel that it's mitigated by the
I
nature of
feel
it.
it's, that the findings show to me that it's mitigated, yeah. But it's clearly within the buffer. Clearly within, the code also says in a 100-foot buffer, you can't go more than 50% of that into the buffer, which would be 50 feet, and it's clearly more than that. But I don't think that it's going to cause any destabilization to the stream bank.
And
So,
any flood that was enough to take it out would probably take the house.
no, any high water is actually going to go the other direction. There's lower
It goes-
banks down.
It's gonna take out the houses across the stream first.
Yeah.
If there's a flood that's bad enough to take care of this, you can have a whole mess. on
Oh,
your hands, a whole,
I get it. I
a
get it.
whole mess on your hands. you know?
My house is
You
like,
personally,
the
yeah,
100-foot thing goes like right next to my house, but not in it.
yeah,
And the 500 is like across the road.
like even when the stream came up 5 feet, it was almost crossed 212 out by the street,
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
everything's gonna be.
I mean, the
water
buffer-
before this thing, everyone's gonna wanna come to this deck,
yeah. the
like
buffer-
Noah's Ark, to get up off the water. Just,
I mean, the 100-foot buffer on the Sawkill, and there's different buffers for different streams, but the point of it is, that the DEC wants, of course, is that it maintains vegetation along there, so that we don't have our mountains washing down to the ocean any quicker than they are. So that's the idea, but in this case, there is no, he's not cutting anything down
Yeah.
to create this space. So I'm good with it, and it's up to you folks if you.
You want to wait for review? What do you want to do?
Well, unfortunately. it
Whatever
does-
you wanna do,
It does
tell me.
require a public hearing, because that's what it requires. I don't think you have any problem, because I don't think any of your neighbors are gonna
Okay.
have an issue.
Perfect.
Whatever
I
you
just
wanna
want to know
do.
where you were going.
So
Okay.
we
This
need a
point, I'm not in a
completed
rush.
application. This is what sketch plan.
Yeah, we have a completed application.
We have it.
Mhm.
Okay, so
I just
we
have to
need
schedule a public hearing.
Let's go to a public. hearing.
Okay.
I'm sorry to put you through.
No,
it,
no,
but
it's okay.
really-
Honestly, I'm
don't
not,
think
I thought I was
anybody's
gonna try to get it done earlier in the spring, and at this point, I'm not gonna be able to do it
Can I
till
ask you a
fall
question?
anyway. I'm gonna,
So
if you say.
if this goes through and when your 5-year tenure, he sells the house and the new owner wants to cover that deck and make a sunroom,
Good point. The condition will be.
how
that it cannot be
does that come
enclosed.
back to us?
Yeah.
Or do
No,
we
you have a
condition-
good point.
No.
There will be a condition that it can't be enclosed.
Cannot be.
It cannot be, okay.
Very good point, James.
It'll go
And it's
in the
something, just to your
resolution.
note, just so you know, too, something I discussed with Butch when we looked at the site plan, I'm doing as a detached structure. It's not gonna be attached to the house the way normally a deck would normally be with the ledger board. It's gonna be on
Completely independent.
completely
No.
independent. Yeah, so it really could technically never be enclosed
Right.
anyways.
How do you get onto it?
It's gonna be buttered up against the house, but it's gonna be, the way that the beams run and the whole thing is gonna be constructed in a way where it is not,
I just see
not
real estate
attached to the
agents standing on it going, and if you covered this, you could have another bedroom.
Right, exactly.
And then they
Yeah.
go, oh, let's do
Because they've
that.
already permitted. Exactly, exactly. So
Yeah,
that would
because
be
they'll
a
say
condition.
anything. It's real estate agents.
Okay.
All right, so we'll set a public hearing.
Yep, absolutely. I'll call you at the beginning of next week and we'll schedule.
yeah, whatever's,
August,
like I said, you know, at this point, whatever's good, it's,
but I promise. that
if
we'll-
possible, to be able to do it before the winter, you know what I mean? But
I will, I promise you that.
we'll see.
I promise
So
you
is a
that.
public hearing another Thursday night, and then you send the letters to everyone in the,
Yeah.
and then whoever wants to show up.
Contiguous neighbors.
Yes.
Yes, I understand.
Anyone who will bus your property.
Okay.
yes.
You
And,
got
I will schedule that with you next week,
it? Cool, you just let me know and I'll be here.
Probably sometime in July, right?
probably August of this week.
Or August? Yeah.
Thank you, guys, I
But
appreciate it.
I'll look
Thanks.
and I'll let you know. I'm gonna get you on as soon as I can. so-
Okay.
Take care.
I think I'm gonna sit in on the rest, I'm just so curious about it.
I'm telling you, I want you here.
Is to make a motion for the Valentine tip offs. I have not gone up to look at
Okay,
it.
that's fine. I sent you an email and said, I know you're
Right.
super busy. We'll put that over to the next one. And if you want me to go with you one night, I can go too.
It's unfortunately, if somebody does want to come, because I know we're planning to have some timber harvest training.
Yeah.
If somebody does want to come and look at it, it does mean hiking up this mountain.
Yeah.
Because to see what,
I remember, well.
Yeah,
we
I
had
remember
problems with
forever.
the Valentine issue before,
Mhm.
so.
That's why I right away went to you.
I wouldn't, but,
All right,
You know, the
whenever
fires
you
in
wanna go,
Canada.
let me know.
How long
reminded
of a
me that
hike
I-
is it?
That I climbed with them high peak to.
How long
dig
of a hike
ditches
is it?
Once,
well,
when there was a
to
fire.
actually go to the top is quite a bit, but I think just to see if it's a big mess and if they've really torn things up and not done what they should.
Well, you can take Jennifer and Greeton if they wanna go. I'm out.
Okay.
Where's?
It's not that big a hike, you know, I mean, probably 1,000 feet up the hill.
But
I
you
might
can set it
go.
up and take the newbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Send an email, I might go.
The main thing, any timber harvest, the first thing is to look at the landing, because that's usually what's left is a big mess.
Perfect.
That's the
first
place
thing
where
to
they
make
load
sure.
the trucks.
Yeah, so I'll email you, we'll set up a time and we'll let everybody know and then you guys can go whenever you want to go. Judy, do you
But
want
you
to do
skipped
the?
one.
And I will wave to
Previous-
you from down
I'm
below.
gonna make some time.
Oh, yeah, you skipped the,
Judy,
you
can
skipped
you
the
do
Polish
these ones?
people.
I need to make a motion. You mean for the draft resolutions?
Yes,
Or-
Mhm.
Okay, so what is the motion?
Just make a motion to approve the draft resolution. Draft resolution.
Okay, I move we approve the draft resolutions for Colich, SUP 230676, Henry, SUP 230677, and Cross, not Peter, I guess, SUP 230678.
Second.
Do we have a second? Anybody?
Those are the last week's.
Mhm.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm gonna go through it. Judy,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Brayden,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Peter.
No,
Thank you guys.
You're consistent. in
I
that.
am.
Yes.
No, that's fine.
Wrote a
We
beautiful
declared
letter.
we've never.
Having
voted yes
things
again.
not be
And I just
unanimous
wanna
is useful.
reiterate, I am your administrator. I have your backs no matter what, all of you, as you know, calling me, John. I listen and I do what I can. And I
And these-
support you and I execute what you guys.
And are these three
want.
part of the plus in
They were the
parentheses?
first,
But are they not a part of what we decided tonight?
yes,
They're not a part of it.
no,
They're
because
from
they're
last
already
time.
done.
So we can't add the thing that we have added.
Because
to
you made
this.
it, right, because there was a motion to wait.
But we have made some progress.
We
on
definitely
this.
have, and it's gonna have conditions that we never separate. Yes,
And we've established that looking at the location is something we will do.
yes. We're gonna nail it down.
All right. So I would like to move that we return the performance bond for Valentine's.
Nope.
No, we're not ready to do
I
that.
haven't
yet.
inspected.
Okay,
Now
so
we're
that's
moving on
getting
to
deferred.
HOTF discussion,
Okay,
pros and cons or whatever you got.
I
Yeah, Judy.
have access to the documents. So the question I have
Hi, Kirk.
is, what questions do people have? How can we help you to understand this? And specifying, this isn't cast in stone, changes will be made. We have gotten feedback from the county and we are working on that. We are looking at the comments that people have been posting on the town website in the email. And we are going to be, in the next week or so, sorting through all of that, figuring out the categories and considering whether any of those ought to change what we are proposing.
I think,
Finally, the town board has to make those decisions.
I think what I would like to do is, I gave you guys homework. I have a list. I've listened to you from the gate 2 years ago when we started talking about this and we've been working on it. I want to hear your pro, your con, because I want to add those to this long, crazy thing that I've been working on that you guys will have before next week when I send the official review. So,
And Kirk is on
and Kirk
the
is on to help
meeting,
us.
so he can help.
Yep.
And on the 29th, we're
Yes.
meeting with
Nan will
Nan.
be here also.
I will
for
be
question and
one
answer.
day out from a surgery.
Mhm.
I expect to be online and, you know,
Yes.
reasonably competent, but
So I think as simple as it is, if you guys just a pro and a con, and I'll just jot it down so I can add it to my list, that would be great. So do you pro and con, or you kind of, you're good?
I'm good with it as we are now, as we are continuing to work on it.
Jennifer, anything?
Pro and a con. I mean, I think it's a very good thing, you know, I mean, overall, so there's lots of pros, obviously.
If I can
Yeah.
help make the issues clearer.
Yeah.
The real question for us, there are two questions for us. In general, is it a good thing? And are there specific things that we think are going to be problematic or changes that we think would make it better?
I think at this point, for me, I don't have a specific thing. I mean, I think the only thing would be, and this is just very general, but since obviously it's going to be at having to change zoning so things will be closer together, maybe less space. That would just be something to think about, but I mean,
Density.
overall, I think it's so great. So, yeah.
Great.
Well, I have some questions. I don't know if I can follow your order of pros and cons. The traditional neighborhood development model,
Mhm.
when does that get employed and when does that get employed and can it be encouraged?
I would think that that has to do with clustered housing. I mean, if you're out in the more rural parts of town, I think I want to ask Kirk to speak to that.
You're muted, Kurt.
I would like to understand what you are, when you state the term traditional neighborhood.
Somewhere in the language, there's something about traditional town neighborhoods that suggest houses closer together.
Small
smaller
front
lots,
yards,
smaller yards.
sidewalks, density, like the what was it? It was popular in the 80s, new urbanism. You know, like
Yeah.
that town seaside in Florida, you know, where you would develop in such a way that it was a walkable, livable,
Right.
more like the Hamlet, or
Right.
Hamlet.
Right. And so your
Um,
point is
It seems
that
like we would want to encourage that type of thing, particularly because we need to get away from cars, right?
Hmm.
And I don't really understand why there's like 90 pages of subdivision edits. And I don't know why we even want subdivisions here at all.
Well, technically, a subdivision is when somebody has a big piece of land and they break it into smaller numbers of lots.
And then you get like a gated community type of
Well, no,
environment. It's a community that's isolated from the town with its cul-de-sacs and its private roads and it's,
But isn't like half the
No.
land needing to go into environmental trust?
half the land has to go into.
So that
environmental
actually-
conservation easements.
And
that
that
actually encourages-
intends to, that will tend to encourage some degree of clustering no matter what, because the remaining land that people can put houses on is going to be closer together and it will have to be more walkable.
Oh, a lot of times, Greg, and we see subdivisions that are really simple as down to a financial issue between family members. Of one who can't afford their property and someone else says, I'm gonna buy 0.33 of an acre of property so you can afford to keep your home. We see a lot of that.
But those are minor
That's
subdivisions.
not, yeah, that's a
Absolutely,
minor, that's a
but
minor.
but just.
Yeah.
When you said we don't want subdivisions, I just wanted to clarify.
No, if you have a piece of land and
We
you're
don't
going
want
to make more
major
than one lot on it,
subdivisions.
it's a subdivision.
Yeah.
Just by definition, that's what a subdivision is. A major subdivision is you're taking a
Five or
piece of
more.
land and making 5 or more. And the average density needs to stay the same as the zoning requires.
I know.
So that means that the pieces that people are actually building on are gonna have to be closer together and they're gonna have to be smaller. Now, if you had a big enough subdivision that you would have the possibility of making it look like a neighborhood, then what you're talking about would apply, but that would be close to town where the size limits are much smaller.
And the code does encourage walkability and encourage other elements that you mentioned that tend to be more of a greater trend in towns of establishing walkability. So those kinds of encouragements are mentioned and acknowledged in the revised code.
How do what are the density bonuses?
They have to do with affordability. The density bonuses are when a person reaches the qualifications of a said area based on their zone or what they're building, that there's an additional amount of units or bedrooms, mostly units, that would be designated then to be made affordable, or to be designated to be in some way allowing the developer to add more because of the bonus. That's the bonus. And so consequently, it translates into having a greater amount of potential of return on their investment.
But it's not, but it's affordable units, it's not just.
Yeah, so
any-
Right.
that would be my pro. Then my
Okay.
con would be if,
So pro is the bonuses,
yeah, the density bonuses to
density
encourage
bonuses for
affordable housing.
affordability. Okay.
Right.
And then the
That's
con
what,
would
that's
be-
the purpose of the density bonuses in this revised code, is to encourage affordability.
And the con,
The con would be if you're allowed to build a second ADU.
yes.
The first one should be affordable, not the second one.
I think
Why
that
would you-
change is likely to happen.
Yeah, there's changes from recommendations from the county that that we are working on in the coming next week. When we have a meeting, we're going to be reviewing that. So that is something that will most likely be changed. The way we have it currently proposed or revised in the draft will be changed to
Yeah,
accommodate more of what you are, to address more of what your concerns are.
Originally, we thought since a first ADU is of right already, that if we changed that, we would be taking something away. Now, I suppose the existing ones are grandfathered, but certainly
Yeah.
anything new we could rule has to be affordable. And then if a second one was permitted, and this is something I'm not sure where we are with that, if a second one is going to be permitted at all, it could be a long-term rental. It could, I don't know if it could be an STR. It probably depends on what happens with the STR law. The first one can't be an STR in the new code.
Right.
But I think that we're likely to make that change since the county is pretty insistent on it. That any new first ones will have to be affordable.
Great, and I just
You
wanna
agree
say-
with me, Kirk, right? That you think that's gonna happen?
Yeah, that change will occur. And so when we come to the 29th for your workshop, we'll have more information on on this specific element of the code and what's how it's being recommended to be changed. So I would suggest that we address this further, your concern around this on the 29th. Because we'll be able to speak more concretely. Because we got recommendations from the county on this very matter.
As a previous teacher, when you come at me and say I have questions first, you did your homework. James, I know you weren't here, but we've been talking about just the zoning procedure. I asked for just a pro and a con. Is there anything you got from all the time that we've talked?
Or do you have other questions?
Oh, no, I have,
Wait a minute, is Graham done?
I'm done, thank you.
okay, yeah, and
I
I
mean, I think
Close to
the
now.
penalties are too low, $350 if you don't follow the subdivision rules, you get fined $350, that's crazy. It should be
Yeah, there's a
$300.
motion, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to head this off. All the fees are being evaluated in the town by the town board. The fees that are listed in the code will not likely stay in the code because the code is too long vision. All the fees in our towns will be raised across the board. That is something that the supervisor has stated that he's going to create as a priority. So I agree with you that fee is ridiculous. And one of the reasons why it shouldn't be written in the code is because it needs to be adjusted too often due to
Yeah.
inflation and other
To pull
measures.
all of them out of the code, and it's part of town policy, town law.
Exactly.
And I just have one more question. What's a terminal vista?
Terminal Vista?
What's a
Terminal vista, it's in the subdivision
Okay, let me
code.
look at the subdivision code.
You're supposed to encourage terminal vistas.
You know,
Oh, I think that's to allow everybody's property to have views, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't want to guess on that. I'm making note of your question and
I'm gonna
on the
open up
29th,
the
and on the 29th, we will
I'll look at
answer
my
that
reading.
question for you. Okay?
He's getting back to us. I like that.
Okay, I'm done.
All right,
Thank you.
James.
Thanks for your questions. Appreciate it.
yeah, I have,
That's on page 83.
your timing's great, so I have to leave in 5 minutes for another town ballot, so.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I actually agree with what we've been saying. I overall think everything is very, very pro in this, like from what I've read. And I'm not sure if this is actually the same thing because I'm so battling all this language, but is cluster and density housing, what you were talking about, the same thing? Or-
No.
No, okay, well, I like the cluster housing. I think that's actually kind of a great thing. I like it for the environmental part of it. I think it actually encourages affordability because you're not buying a mansion on, 50 acres. You're actually near your neighbors, and that probably
You
keeps
can have a
price-
mismatch.
it keeps prices a
So
little
that's
bit.
like building envelopes. We like building.
Yes, and I think that to me is one of the best pros is to encourage cluster things like that. Also, I also want to stand up for the idea that all this should really encourage retirement and long-term care type of housing in our community because we don't have any, I don't think. And it's pretty sad.
Yeah, we definitely have a provision in there for that being.
Yeah, we should really, that's
Permitted.
really great that that's mentioned because it really needs it. And the con, I would just say, is sort of the same thing I said as a pro, is that things like cluster housing and all that is going to cause people in the area in terms of traffic, in terms of like, oh my God, you're going to actually put 10 houses.
It
right?
doesn't make any more houses. That's an important understanding.
How's that?
If you have. let's
If
say
you're in
you
an
have-
RA district,
if you're in an R8, well, a lot of things can't be done in an R8 district.
R5.
But let's say you're in an R5 district and you have 50 acres. And under the old rules, you could have 10 houses and it would be like cookie cutters. Every
Right,
one of them
right.
is 5 acres and that's the way you do it. And
Oh, I
under
see
the
what
new
you're
law,
saying. There'd
you
be 10
can't.
houses anyways. There'd be 10
There'd be
houses
10
either close
houses
together or
anyway.
far apart.
But half of that 50 acres is conserved.
Right.
That means you've only got half of that land to do those 10 houses on. So they're by necessity closer together. Plus you have to look at the landscape.
Right.
We have net acreage, which means if you've got steep slopes and wetland buffers, that's not counted in the buildable acreage. So you might not even get 10 houses, you might get 8. By the necessity of the things, and in order to have fewer roads and less breaking up the landscape, they're going to be closer together. The areas that people are going to live on will have to be smaller, but then that whole open area is available for everyone, whether it's owned in a homeowners association or whether it's owned as part of the holdings of a house. It's available to people to walk on, and they see it, and it is conserved. It's not.
And then did I read this?
built on.
Did I read this right? That then a percentage of those houses would be affordable?
No.
We are talking about that.
Because I highly suggest that.
At the moment, in the floating residential districts, it's like 60%. And in multiple unit dwellings, 5 or more apartments, at a certain amount of it has to be affordable. But we're talking about it on the subdivisions.
Good.
We're
I
not
think we should.
quite there yet, but I
Okay.
think when we get to the 29th, it may be. Because that's another thing that the county is recommending.
But do you allow someone to buy out the right to build that affordable unit?
We expect to remove the buyout, the fee in lieu of.
Yes. that's
That we got
important.
enough feedback on, and I think that is going to happen
Good,
throughout the law. I think that's going to happen.
good,
Yeah, because it's too easy to abuse.
absolutely.
Or me get one.
Now, there are going to be builders who say, I don't want to build. And the answer to that is fine. Don't build.
Oh,
Go somewhere
totally.
else.
Right. I mean, I was gonna actually say, mention as a con, like, I'm no expert on all this right yet, but if there's too much code here, does that actually discourage the capitalist development part? That would,
I think it will.
right, but as in, that's a good thing, but then doesn't mean that we still aren't really gaining any more housing.
As I've been saying since the beginning of this, all we can do is make it possible. Somebody with money has to be willing to build. I mean, I'm looking at an ADU on my house. And if I build it, and I think it's a pretty good chance that I will end up doing it, I will do home share. It will be affordable. That means I'm putting my own money in, and I probably will never get it back in my lifetime. But, the home share has advantages for me as a person. The affordability aligns with my politics. And hopefully more people will do that because they have a use for doing that.
Yeah.
And particularly older people who have a property that can in some way support an ADU, they have the advantage of they're not all alone on that property. If they do home share, they have somebody that they've been matched with who is willing to help in some way or other that's appropriate to the person.
Right, well,
And yeah,
it
and I
all
have to
sounds
put
good.
money in it.
So that kind of addressed your con.
Yeah.
Good. Mr. Lavelle.
I'm the business partner.
Oh, Jackie, yeah.
That's great.
Size of the units being, if you have a 4,000 square foot unit, you can divide it into 4 units. And 2 people can live in each one. And as they said, as the ZBA said, where do you put the 8 cars? Where?
The question of how acreage and number of units, and the county is also recommending number of bedrooms as a concern rather than units. We're going to find some way to mix those because it is absolutely a question. I
James,
think
thank you.
1 or 2 bedroom apartments
luck.
are likely to be the usual.
But that still means there could be 2 persons in each apartment. Minimum. And each person can have a car to go to work.
Yes.
What are we doing? We're creating,
The number of units per acre or the number of acres per unit is going to remain as the zoning. So if you've got an apartment house with 8 units in it, you have to have a lot more land to do one building.
If I might add
I
a
know
couple.
it's kind of hard to get your brain around.
If I could add a couple comments here, and John, I appreciate your acknowledging this and specifically to the parking. And there's 2 things I'd like to address. One is that one thing about the code is that the amount of criteria for multifamily dwellings to be built is very, very strict. One of which is the parking. And also creating visual blocks from neighbors and privacy so that too is, so the neighborhood is protected. So there's a lot of specifics and nuances associated with the revised code that address it, that makes it very challenging actually for the developer or builder to make sure that they meet all of those criteria, much of which is focused on the parking elements that you are concerned about. The other thing that I would like to add is that, you know, we can't solve the housing problems or the issues that we're facing with housing without considering transportation solutions also. We can't, it's not just solving housing by looking only at housing. There has to be considerations and talk of transportation solutions. And in the comprehensive plan, there was a suggestion and recommendation that a jitney be established in our town. And that jitney would be something that would take a lot of pressure off and allow residents to move around more readily within the town itself. I do want to state that there's a pilot being proposed for hyper-local transportation solutions that would move people in Woodstock and between Woodstock and West Hurley and for shopping at Hannaford and such. That pilot is on the table and being proposed. And so transportation would help address some of the challenges that you feel would be present, and I agree with you, would be present. So we have to think about transportation as much as we need to think about, and we were just talking earlier about walkability and more people using other modes of transportation in our town more safely. So all of these things matter when and I want to use the phrase smart development, that we consider all of this as a whole, more holistically. And so one is, my response to you, John, is that the criteria and the strictness of multifamily dwellings takes into consideration some of your concerns, specifically about parking. And that criteria the planning board will become familiar with as they become more familiar with this code.
Because the planning board's going to have to be the one that looks at a proposal and says, where are you going to put the parking? How are you going to deal with this? Where does it lay in the land?
Right.
How does it affect the neighbors? How does it affect the road traffic?
I like Kirk's comments regarding potential solutions to transportation.
Yeah.
But I also really believe that the horse needs to be in front of the cart, not the other way around. You're putting a cart in front of a horse.
So I think that's
Transportation
part of the issue, is that this was suggested in
The
2018.
transportation issues are mammoth. They're
Yeah.
mammoth.
Yeah, they're really
And
important.
they need to be solved before you solve the housing problem, not after. You can't do it after. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. We've had these discussions for decades now. And transportation has never been issued. And all that has occurred during the last few decades is prices skyrocket in this town and more people buy it. We're dealing with STRs, an unfortunate situation because of the fact that we have not dealt with all of the other issues first. Sorry.
Thank you, John.
Okay? Done.
Peter?
Wouldn't UCAT be shored up to create a better service? Why do we have to create a new jitney?
I think we are.
No, that's the UCAT is where the pilot program would stem from. it would be a pilot program within that, that
You,
organization.
Deborah, Judith, have put into this is mammoth, and I know that. Appreciate it, I truly do. But we've been through this so many times over the years, and we never get to the basics first.
Hmm.
I don't know that we have a solution that can be put into effect without addressing some of these underlying
Well-
structural issues in the town.
But there's a chicken and egg problem.
Oh, sure there is.
I mean, you won't have public transportation unless you have people using public transportation. There are certain things we have put in, like subdivisions having to have bike paths and walking paths.
Look what happened in Kingston when it came to addressing public transportation. It deteriorated, less and less people used it, until one thing happened. They removed the fares for the buses. Now people are using it because they're free. That's it, they're free. So,
So it's coming out of the taxes.
yeah, right, exactly. So now it's coming out of every taxpayer's pocket. So,
Well, we have a lot more mileage per capita than Kingston, and that's a problem. I would love to be able to take a bus. I can't.
I understand that.
I don't mean because of my personal disability,
No,
but
I
even if they ran
understand.
a bus on Xena Road, I'd have to walk around the corner of Xena Road. Which I could do sometime of the year. What?
You can't do it because it's,
There's no bus.
You
If
have
there
to
was
get
a
to
bus,
somewhere else to get on a bus.
right,
Stop.
currently, yeah.
Hmm.
Peter, pro
Okay,
and con?
Kirk and Judy and all of you guys have worked on this. I'm in total favor of the conservation subdivision idea. And we just did it with the FAM acres. And that's a good model of how we go about taking out everything that's not developable or that's protected, and then
adding a bunch of stuff that might be developable,
Right.
but we're not going to.
so now my question is, since we have this model and we now have said that the folks that, in that subdivision that ended up with 10, 12, 15 acre lots, some of which those acreage is wetlands or whatever, that we're gonna give them a building envelope, that they can't go build beyond this particular area.
And that would be for any
Right.
development.
So
not
my
just-
question is, 10 years from now, who's gonna go out there and see if they haven't put a tennis court or a garage or something else over that so-called building envelope?
Bingo.
And who's gonna check it? And what are they gonna do about it?
Well,
I mean, how are you gonna monitor it? It's the minute somebody puts a garage up, is
the
somebody gonna
issue
run out there
of
and rip it down?
enforcement is not something the zoning law can deal with, but the board has to. And we are certainly making recommendations separate from the zoning and subdivision law for things that the town board really needs to take account of. And enforcement is absolutely one of them. Our current situation is that we don't have enough enforcement for things we already have on the books.
So that's kind of goes to what John was saying, is that we can't enforce what we have now. I'm concerned about, which I love the idea of the building envelope and the conservation area. I just in the future wonder how that's going to be monitored. Next point is, as a land surveyor, which I do every day, subdivisions, other than creating a small lot somewhere to put an affordable house, other than the situation Judy's saying, where she's gonna put this ADU next to her house, well, everything's there, the driveway's there, the water's there, everything's there. But I see on a daily basis, to get a house built on any lot, I don't care if it's 1 acre or 5 acres or a half an acre. What we see in the field between the engineering to get a road in, to get septic in, to get power in, to get foundations in, it is not affordable unless somebody is going to do it for free, unless somebody, Rockefeller says, hey, I'm gonna give you 10 million and build you a few things, because you can't build for less than several $100s a square foot. Impossible, impossible.
300 minimum.
I'm
I just
figuring
built-
out 300 for
I just
most
built
of
a
it.
bathroom for $500 a square. So, and that's on an existing lot with an existing road, with an existing water and everything else. You I get the idea that we want to make smaller lots, because conceivably, the smaller the lot, the more affordable. However, at $50,000 an acre around here, I don't care how small it is, it doesn't become too affordable. So that's the reality of what I see on a daily basis, what I do as a surveyor. It's just to get driveways in, I mean, these were in the mountains. And unless you happen to have, like Judy says, it next to her house where you get, we're in the mountains, and if you have to get driveways and cross streams, and it's not easy. So that's my
Well,
only point.
It's not cheap.
let me try to answer that. What we have now doesn't even conserve the land. What we're proposing conserves the land, requires affordability, and maybe it results in people not building, and then we've conserved the land. I don't know how you can get affordable housing without somebody putting the money in.
Well, that's, I guess.
But
that's
at
my
least we
point.
can conserve the land. At least we can say you cannot do this without some amount of it being affordable. One house out, one apartment, one unit out of 10 or something on that scale.
As I
And you
said,
make your money on the other 9.
as I say, I certainly appreciate everybody's effort, your effort, everybody's effort. It's the proof will be in the pudding.
Yes, and my question is, and our question is, what in this code is going to be hard to deal with, other than the enforcement question? What are we going to have trouble getting our minds around and saying to a builder or a developer, this is how you have to do it? And if you can't do it that way, you can't do it.
Well, that becomes, I don't know, that you can tell somebody who owns land that they have to build a house
Sure you
under a
can.
certain cost, or they can't build it, because I'll tell you what, you'll be in court the next day.
But we're not saying to any landowner, everything on your property has to be affordable.
I'm just saying, if you say anything has to, if you make a restriction to a landowner that they have to build something affordable, that I don't think you can do that legally.
No, that's a good question. Do we know anything about that? Has it been tested anywhere, Kirk?
Well, one thing I'd like to say about this whole discussion around how it's so difficult to build anything that's, at any reasonable cost, is the market has created that situation. And so we're in the circumstance we're in because the market, and the commodification, if you will, of land in this country. So that's one, that's a philosophical statement. The thing I wanted to also stress is that housing has been subsidized in this country since the 50s.
Yeah.
Every house, every homeowner, every mortgage has had, the mortgage credit every year.
As opposed to renters who don't get any of that benefit.
Right. So we've had subsidized housing for individual homes for decades, for half a century. And so to be able to build what we need for affordable will also require subsidized housing. We have to find the means of that subsidization, and we're having a proposal on our county right now of a $15 million grant fund that will support building of affordable housing. So there are ways in which things are coming, funding is coming forward that will help affordable housing to be built, because it needs to be built, and government and leaders are starting to recognize that. So that's my short answer on the issue of, can we build if we can't afford it? So it will have to be subsidized. And that subsidization, those programs for that are coming online and will be in place by the time we start building. That's my response.
Well, I mean, I understand there's rent control and city-owned apartments and so on. But as we found in Woodstock through RUBCO, that in order to build affordable housing, they had endless amount of access to government funds at no interest. And even then, now they can raise the rents to standard rents because there was a certain period of time that they had to keep it affordable.
You mean not RUBCO, but
RUBCO.
Yeah,
They
Repco
can-
has, they have,
They can raise their rent after a certain period of time to be in line with all other rent.
A
yeah,
year.
30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever the terms are for that particular property.
Because no one can put up that money forever, not even the government can lose money forever. So at some point, they gotta earn back that $20 million that they spent building that thing.
Go ahead, John.
Well, affordability is an issue that every
I
community in this
retired
country is
from the New
facing.
York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. I was Director of Management Systems, which was the unit in charge of reviewing all applications for affordable housing.
Mhm.
It's not a new issue for me. Sorry to say that I really don't believe that I will ever see it in this town. It's just the reality of where we live and the demands on this town that are being put by outside buyers. It's the buyers. It's the money coming into this town that will prevent this from occurring. I really believe you've got a major issue when it comes to addressing it here in Woodstock. I mean, I wish there was. Repco will never come back. It's simple. 5.5 years of review, constantly badgered, constantly called everything under the sun at every public meeting. They will never come back to this town. And to think that this document's going to change it, sorry. I absolutely cannot agree. It's not going to happen. And the old saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This is exactly what this is. Multiple paving blocks.
Okay, so what,
Alright.
if you guys are done, what I want to do is I just want to go through my list and make sure that I've hit everything and that this is like everything. This is what I plan on putting in. We appreciate that we've been involved. We appreciate all the hard work that's went into it. Start out with the whole big thing. Positives for us are the building envelopes on parcels with conservation areas being applied, as in family acres, as you said. Promoting conservation subdivision is definitely a plus for all of us as planning board members. Floating residential districts and the town board authority to create, we like that idea. Net acreage, we like. Potential for open space, we like. Much needed clarity to the town code. Yes, that's apparent. Negatives, fear of drawing more out of town developers. I've heard this from various people.
Excuse me, say that again.
Fear of drawing more out of town developers.
We think that's not gonna happen.
And this is not my list. This is what I've heard from you guys for 2 years. It might not be you particularly, it might be someone else, but this
I
is me
think
keeping
in
track.
in particular, the affordability requirement is gonna discourage that.
Yeah,
I'm just going through, again, this isn't me, you know
I'm
this.
saying that is not something I would put
In
in
this
a report
climate,
for us.
affordable is just not a possibility. Resistance to tri and quadplexes, increase of density. ADUs are a nightmare right now. Let's ask the ZBA. So there's concern of that.
Wait a minute, talk about
Can we go
that.
back?
What are you talking about?
ADUs,
What is the nightmare that is going on in the ZBA that I have never heard about?
it's just, they're constantly there within whether it's allowed or it's not allowed, or how many buildings are on a parcel. Maybe,
Okay,
maybe we should
let
have a
me-
conversation with the ZBA.
Let me speak to a couple of things there.
I just
I
want to
know,
give you
but
a list.
I want
We
you,
can broaden on the 29th. I just want to give
Okay,
you,
all
so
right,
you
all
guys
right.
know that I have heard
okay,
from all of you.
because
plus.
I think there's an answer to that.
Okay, and there probably is an answer to a lot of this. Like, again, this is my ongoing stack. All right, so then the next thing is just, we will need training and we will need execution of, and we need to put that in that first recommendation that we hope and expect Nan and Kirk and Judy to help us, and then to get
Not just this
compensated, because we
board,
don't
not
have,
just
we
this
don't
board.
have a budget to pay them. Okay, we don't. The town has to pay them.
You mean for training?
Yes,
The town has to budget training for all of the
Yes.
relevant departments.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Your committee review what other communities around us
Yes.
have done to attract affordable housing. The fact that the city of Kingston manages to attract a considerable amount of money from outside agencies, Rubco in particular. What are they doing that's so different than what we do?
They probably have a grant writer, that's one thing.
Could be. All right, I have 6 more. I just want to get through
If
them
one
so you guys
Something-
know.
this is
If
something
one
we can ask
position-
Dan on
If
the
one
29th.
position was the answer to affordable housing in this town, and we haven't dealt with it over the last 50 years, then shame on us. One position, a grant writer? Come on, we've tried it. We had a grant writer. Guess what they did? The town board and the supervisor fired her.
That's a different problem from whether that would be as part of a solution.
Okay,
Part of the solution, excuse me, part of the solution is trying to do it in a workable manner. So look at the way in which these communities have been successful
Well,
in
that is a
attracting
question to
affordable
raise with
housing.
Nan, who has worked with a lot of small communities in this town. That's exactly why we hired Nan. Because she's done this kind of work and she's written code for other towns. And we can ask her that question on the 29th.
definitely. And again, I just want to get through the list so you guys know what I'm proposing because I want to draft.
That's not
memo.
what you're proposing. That's
No.
what you're finding is in the air that needs to be talked about.
Well, right, what the memo is that's gonna come from you guys as a whole, yes. And then you have this in your head for the 29th meeting for the questions when Nan is here and Kirk is here. So this is just everything that I've heard. I know you guys have a lot to say, but there, at one point, we talked a bit about a build-out analysis. How much land is really left in this town?
Plenty.
Again, ADU concerns, open space questions, and there's questions, what actually curtails open space, tax break incentives, state plan coordinates on all the plats, clerical procedure corrections, the
Slow
Vulcan
down. I
regs,
didn't hear that last one. You're going too
clerical
fast.
procedural corrections. And the
What is
last
that?
one, that's just the clerical issues that we'd already sent, but that should be on there.
I don't know what that means.
Yes, they were done the wrong way. We dealt with that a long time ago and I know. It'll be on. there.
Excuse me, back to how much land is left in this town?
Yeah.
Take a look at the square mileage of Woodstock. 1 second. What's the square mileage of Woodstock? Approximately 69 square miles. What's the square mileage of Manhattan? Approximately 69 square miles.
How much of it is buildable?
They leveled the mountains that were in the
It's not gonna happen
middle.
here, is it?
No, it's not gonna happen. I'm not suggesting it should happen. What I'm saying is stop using that argument that we don't have enough land. We have plenty of land. If you use 1/5 of it, you're talking about.
John, it wasn't an argument, it was just
It's
what
not
I've
an
heard.
argument. It's not
I
an
know.
argument.
And the last thing is the density and minimum lot requirements in the Vulcan regs tables. 3 tables is a little confusing and it is lacking info right now, but we know that, we've heard it. And, you know, bare minimum facts, we do have a lot of undersized lots in this town that are pre-conforming, pre-existing, and we just might want to take that into consideration.
And give the
And
document a
again,
haircut.
this is not me, this is everything that I have heard, and this will be what will be in the memo, and then we will continue this discussion on the 29th.
What about public transport?
Well, that just came up tonight, so that didn't make this.
Yeah, but I'm still confused when you say that's what's gonna be in the memo. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily what's gonna be in the memo. That's what you're starting from, and then we have to get
Yes.
it down to the issues that we agree
Absolutely,
are.
that's
in-
why I wanted to go through it like, so it was in your heads, we will have access to Nan and Kirk, and we are fine, I mean, and I will sit here and cross off or whatever. we're
Because I have
doing.
answers to some of them already,
And I
don't
knew
come up
that.
with them.
Yes.
I mean,
But
I don't know
just-
how much my brain will be functioning the day after surgery, but we'll see.
Point is, I have listened to everyone and
Okay,
tried to take
folks,
into account.
are we ready for a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Thank you very
I'll
much
second it.
for your attentiveness to this. I know it is a lot.
It
I have
is a
trouble
lot,
keeping
it is
it
a
in my
lot.
head.
We've been through it so many
Bye, guys,
times.
I'm signing
John?
out.